My beloved child, I call you in this very moment when you believe everything is still tangled, unprepared, not yet at the right time, because it is precisely now that the hour long appointed in the heavenly realm has arrived. On earth, you look at your schedule, your responsibilities, your pressures, the unresolved questions weighing on your mind, and you think, perhaps this is not the time to face anything more. I am already exhausted. Yet in heaven, the spiritual clock has struck a red line that cannot be pushed back. There are moments that feel to you like nothing more than an ordinary evening, another day passing without distinction. But above, it is the hour when angels stand in formation, awaiting command. And I say, the time has come. You think you are merely glancing over a few lines of text by accident. But in truth, your soul has been summoned into an appointment I recorded long before you understood what hurt meant, what betrayal felt like, or what another person's envy could do to your heart. This moment may seem inconvenient in your own understanding, but it is precisely because you feel unready that I must speak now, for if I waited until you felt better, freer, or less weary, the trap might have already closed. The door of opportunity might already be shut, and the wound might already be sealed deep within your soul. I need you to understand that this message is not a secondary option, not something you can place on a list labeled, read later, or look at when I have time. This is an urgent call from above. Like an alarm bell ringing through a city fast asleep, you have grown accustomed to enduring, accustomed to staying silent, accustomed to assuming that the uneasiness inside you is simply because you are too sensitive. And so you have trained yourself to dismiss the voice within. But I do not dismiss it. Every time your chest grows heavy without a clear reason, every time you walk into a room and feel peace slip away, every time you hear your name mentioned and something inside you stirs uneasily, I take note. This message must be opened immediately, because the battle surrounding you does not pause to wait for you to calm down. The words spoken behind your back continue to flow. The envious glances remain concealed, and the hidden schemes continue taking shape. If you close your heart once more and reassure yourself with, "I'm sure it's nothing," you will miss the protection that has already been arranged for you. Today I stop you here, not to burden you further, but to remove from you a weight you were never meant to carry, one that would not have existed if others had chosen integrity. For many nights, Archangel Michael has stood behind you, not distant, not indifferent, but like the most faithful sentinel, sword drawn, eyes piercing through shadows you do not yet have words for. You may have sensed something fleeting, a subtle shiver, a feeling of being covered, though no one was around. But then you brushed it off, assuming it was just tiredness or imagination. I understand why you have been distracted. The enemy never wants you to recognize spiritual timing. It places before you all kinds of concerns, financial worries, family issues, wounds from the past that still ache for healing, trivial conversations, messages that drain hours of your time without touching your spirit. It knows that if you do not open this message, you will continue walking through a thin, deceptive fog, just enough for you to keep moving, yet just enough to keep you unaware of how close you are to the boundary of danger. Michael has been trying to whisper to you, brushing gently against your soul with subtle warnings, the moments you suddenly did not want to see someone, the times you felt the urge to keep your distance but then felt guilty about it. The times you were about to share something personal, but something inside you stopped abruptly. None of this was random. It was heaven's soft call, inviting you to look in another direction. But because you have long been accustomed to prioritizing others, to sacrificing your peace in the name of keeping harmony, you did not hear everything. There has been a long season of silence stretched before you. You have asked me, why don't you make it clear? Why don't you name it plainly? Why must I sense things vaguely without something solid to hold on to? I heard everything. I saw the tears you shed without telling anyone. I know the nights you lay staring at the ceiling, wondering whether you had misjudged someone unfairly, whether you were being too suspicious, whether you simply lacked faith in goodness. My silence was never abandonment. In that quiet, I was gathering spiritual evidence, allowing your character to be refined, watching to see whether you would choose bitterness or preserve a tender heart. There are times when heaven grows still, not because I am not speaking, but because my word is circling through layers of resistance, old fears, and ingrained assumptions within you. I waited until your heart was soft enough to receive truth without breaking. Today, when you open this message, it signifies that the moment has come when silence must give way to a clear decree. The truth can no longer remain locked in the gray areas. If I remained silent, the wound would deepen, the misunderstanding would bind you, and the one with harmful intent would believe no eye had seen. When I say enough, it is not a casual remark. It is a boundary drawn between mercy and justice. Enough means I have given sufficient time for that person to repent, for their intentions to be exposed and redirected. Enough means I have watched long enough, endured long enough, and allowed you to learn your lesson deeply enough. There are things I permit to continue, not because I am weak, but because I desire to extend every possible opportunity to a wandering soul. Yet, when I declare enough, it signifies that any further prolonging will no longer bring benefit to anyone. At that moment, spiritual justice begins to move. Secret whispers are brought into the light. Hidden schemes are overturned. Pretended smiles can no longer mask the heaviness in their eyes. Enough means that from this moment on, I will no longer let you walk alone in a gray zone, nor leave you guessing who is genuine, who is false, who is for you, and who is against you. Enough means you no longer have to endure the feeling of having your energy drained each time you encounter someone who was never appointed for your future. This is not only a boundary I set for those who intend to harm you, it is also the liberation I am granting you. You no longer need to justify the energies that wound you, nor blame yourself for discerning correctly. From this moment forward, an urgent call from the higher realm has been sounded, and I invite you to respond not with fear, but with deep awakened clarity, with the courage to face truth beneath my light. My beloved, as you step into the next part of this message, I want you to open your heart wide, because from here, the truth will begin to unfold, layer by layer. No more vague sensations. No more gentle warnings drifting across your mind like mist and disappearing. In the spiritual realm, the one who has been harming you in secret has been called by name. What the natural eye cannot see has long been visible in the unseen realm. What your ears have not heard has already been recorded in heaven. What you try to reason with your mind has been clearly perceived by the unshakable light of the divine. They have stood behind you not just once, not just for a short time, but for a prolonged season, with intentions woven from admiration and jealousy, closeness and rivalry. A trained smile masking a heart thick with envy. I want you to understand that their exposure is not accidental, not coincidental, not triggered by any human accusation, but affirmed by heaven after every spiritual movement reached its final threshold. I have observed them since the first seed of intention took root within them. A small thought, like a dark seed, began with comparison, then grew into dissatisfaction, then transformed into obsession. They saw the light upon you, and instead of allowing it to inspire them, they let it become a mirror that reflected their own emptiness. From that moment on, they watched every step you took, every word you spoke, every blessing that made its way toward you. In the spiritual realm, Every time this person mentioned your name with ill intent, streaks of light flashed through the unseen dimensions, like warning signals. These signals have been recorded in the heavenly archives, and today they all point to one conclusion: the hour has come for the truth to be revealed. Their identity must be spoken before midnight, not earlier, not later, because this is the point of intersection between two timelines, the timeline of humanity and the timeline of God. On the spiritual clock, you are standing at a profoundly important crossroads. When the hand of time touches the boundary between today and tomorrow, a gateway in the unseen realm will open, a gateway that could lead you into a great leap forward or leave you trapped longer in confusion. If the truth is not unveiled before this appointed moment, you will step into a new season with old shadows still clinging to you, and that could interfere with the blessings approaching your life. This identity has been withheld until today, not because I desired delay, but because I waited until every piece within your spirit matured enough to receive the truth without breaking. But once heaven's timing is sealed, delay is no longer an option. The second reason is that this person is preparing to make a final move, an action that appears harmless on the surface, but carries a potential to deeply disrupt your peace and your opportunities. They have nurtured this intention for a long time, but recently their energy has grown stronger, bolder, more unstable. Before midnight, they will try to intrude into your space through a word, an action, a message, a seemingly casual meeting, or through whispered conversations with someone else. If you do not know who is targeting you, you will easily be deceived by their rehearsed kindness or their dramatic concern. But if the truth is revealed, you will no longer fall into that cycle. You will be alert. You will discern. You will stand firm. This is the delicate intersection between warning and protection. Warning so that you may know, protection so that you may not collapse. Warning so your eyes are open, protection so your heart remains steady. Warning so you see clearly, protection so you do not panic. I do not reveal the truth to make you tremble, I reveal it so you may rise. A warning without the warmth of protection would only cause your spirit to shrink back. But protection without warning would leave you unknowingly stepping into danger. Therefore, I braid these two together like strands that cannot be separated. When I forewarn you, I am simultaneously pulling you away from the trap. When I unveil the veil, I place angels beside you. When I point out the danger, I also open an escape route right before your path. There are moments when your heart loosens just a little as you read these words, because your soul recognizes what I am saying. You do not need to force your mind to understand. That subtle stirring within you is the confirmation that you are touching the layer of truth your spirit has sensed for a long time. It is in that very moment that my decree enters. The truth can no longer be delayed. You have hesitated many times, telling yourself you were exaggerating, convincing yourself it was better to overlook things, trying to believe that silence would keep the peace. But I cannot allow you to continue moving in a cycle like that, because truth is not merely something to know. Truth is something you need in order to survive. Truth is the light that shines into the dark corners where, if left untouched, you would unknowingly carry the poison of others within you. I speak these words not to force you, but to open a door. The truth can no longer be delayed. When I say this, it means the gates of heaven have opened at a very specific realm, not the realm of blessing, not the realm of outward success, but the realm of discernment, where your soul is taught to recognize who is for you and who is hiding an intention against you. No one can walk into the future prepared for them while still clinging to those who drain their strength. You cannot cross into a new doorway if your hand is still held back by connections that do not come from me. And for this reason, the truth must be unveiled now, not an hour later, not when you feel calmer, not when you have time, not when you feel ready, but now in the very moment the heavens have ordained. when your spiritual senses are sharp, when the angels are drawing near, and when the one targeting you has lowered their guard because they believe you remain unaware. Remember this. My child, light waits for no one. When I speak, it goes directly where it must go. When I call, your soul will tremble. And when I say the truth can no longer be delayed, that is the seal that initiates the unveiling, a process no force can stop. Because it does not come from the earth but from heaven, you are about to step into a moment where the name, the identity, and the intention will become as clear as daylight. Open your heart. Hold your peace. Heaven is about to speak plainly. My beloved child, before you step further into the truth that is approaching, I want to awaken within you a new kind of peace, not the shallow peace that shifts with emotions, but a peace rooted deeply in your soul. A peace the world cannot explain and the enemy cannot touch. Begin with one deep, slow breath. You may not know this, but every time you inhale, heaven pours a soft beam of light into you. And when you exhale, layers of spiritual dust, jealousy, exhaustion, fear, harmful words, negative energy leave your body through that breath. Breath is not merely physical life, it is the bridge between your body, your mind, and your spirit. When you inhale deeply, you open a small doorway for light to enter. When you exhale slowly, you release what does not belong to you. Many consider breathing a simple reflex, but in the spiritual realm, breath is a language, a surrender, a way of aligning yourself with the stream of protection flowing toward you. For the last 3 nights, I have placed angels to stand guard beside your bed. They did not appear with loud noises, shaking your room, nor did they manifest with signs the human eye could record. They came through stillness, the kind of stillness that keeps your weary heart from collapsing, that prevents fear from taking over, that gives you the quiet sense that even if no one is standing beside you, you are not alone. On the first night, an angel stood near your head, placing a hand over the space where your heart aches most often. On the second night, they stood by your door, blocking any energy that was not of God. On the third night, they surrounded your room in a circle of light. You felt something, but you dismissed it: a breeze, a light shiver, a moment of unexpected calm. Yet it was in those moments that the angels were working most powerfully. I have sent you signs over the past few days, times when you did not want to respond to a certain message and could not explain why, moments when you suddenly felt tired while standing next to a particular person, nights when you woke without knowing the reason, subtle moments when you felt watched, not in fear, but in protection. These signals were not tricks of the mind. They were reminders from above that you are being watched over, guarded, and guided. But because you have become used to quieting your inner voice, used to silencing your intuition so you do not doubt others, you have ignored many heavenly warnings. It is all right, my child. I do not blame you. I understand that recognizing the subtle movements of the spiritual realm takes time, and that is why I come to you today with words that are unmistakably clear. I want you to know something profoundly important: this message, every word, every thought, every breath woven into it, is not written with ink. It is written with light. Light does not tremble, does not fade, and does not dim with time. Light cannot be distorted by human hands, cannot be concealed by shadows. When I tell you that this message is written in light, it means it carries no trace of doubt, no hue of anxiety, no echo of low or corrupt energy. It is sent from a realm so elevated that darkness cannot touch it, cannot twist it, cannot claim it. There are words spoken on earth that unsettle those who hear them, but there are words spoken from heaven that awaken the soul. This message is the latter. It is not given merely for you to hear, it is given for you to be healed. It is not offered only to make you alert, it is offered to make you strong. It is not delivered solely to expose truth, it is delivered to stir the heavenly nature within you, a nature you have forgotten in your weary days. I want you to hold on to this comfort. Not a single word I speak ever falls to the ground without accomplishing its purpose. When I say that light is covering you, that light is working in reality. When I say that angels are guarding you, they are standing right there. And when I declare that you are protected before the 25th of December, it is not a vague promise. It is a seal from heaven. Before that day arrives, there are great movements unfolding in the spiritual realm concerning you. New doors are being opened. Great blessings are being released. And significant decisions concerning your future are being prepared. And because these things are drawing near, the enemy grows restless, eager to intrude, eager to interfere, eager to insert chaos. But I have gone ahead of him. Before the 25th of December, I will halt every harmful intention aimed at you, whether it comes through wounding words, disguised betrayal, lingering toxic energies, or hidden plans being forged in silence. I will place angels around you like an invisible wall. I will cause meetings that are not from me to be delayed, words meant to harm you to falter, and dark schemes to unravel and lose their force. Before that day comes, you will notice certain things that seem as though they are about to happen, but then slip away at the last moment. This is not coincidence. It is a precise and powerful intervention from heaven. I know that before facing the truth, your heart needs a place to rest, to breathe, to release the heaviness, to look back on your journey without blaming yourself. I know that confronting truth can make a soul tremble. But I want you to understand that truth comes to you not to crush, but to free. My truth never destroys, it heals. And peace is the foundation upon which truth enters in a way that causes your soul to grow, not shrink. Take another deep breath. My child, breathe in light and release what does not belong to you. Feel the angels standing around you, their hands resting gently on your shoulders, as a soft reminder, you are not alone. Feel your chest grow lighter, your mind open, your spirit becoming steady before revelation arrives. Remember that you are standing within the embrace of heaven. Remember that light is working this very moment. And remember that before the 25th of December, every force rising against you will be dissolved, every shadow pushed back, every silent curse cut off, and you will step into a new season with feet no longer dust-laden, a heart no longer stained, and a soul no longer burdened. My beloved child, as the veil begins to lift, I want you to understand that warnings from heaven are never sent to plant fear or make your spirit tremble. Fear is not my language, nor is it the purpose of any message I give to those I have chosen. Warnings from the divine come to awaken the soul, to open the inner eyes, to stir the discernment that has long slept within you, and to help you recognize what is light and what is shadow attempting to weave itself into your life. There are things which, when revealed, might seem alarming if you are not spiritually awake, but if you listen with your soul rather than your worry, you will understand that every warning is a key to freedom, a lamp set upon the path where, without its glow, you might wander into danger without knowing. I have never thrown you into a trial without warning you first. Before every storm, He places a sign. Before every attack from the shadows, He positions an angel at the door. Before every disruption in your relationships, He sends a gentle unease into your heart, not to frighten you, but to draw your attention. Before every betrayal, He gives your heart a subtle tremor of caution. Before every turning point of destiny, He stirs your spirit so you will not fall asleep to what is coming. Whether you believe it or not, this has always been a truth running throughout the history of the spiritual realm. No challenge ever arrives without a sign that precedes it. It is only that sometimes you miss those signs because your heart is too kind, too eager to believe the best in people, too accustomed to placing others before yourself. You once thought your intuition was simply sensitivity. In truth, it is the way heaven speaks to you, the way the wind touches the face of the water to form tiny ripples before the rain begins to fall. I want you to remember that your reading this message is not accidental. You did not stumble here by chance. You did not open it out of a fleeting curiosity. Your soul was summoned. Whenever heaven wants to deliver a message that shifts the course of someone's destiny, the soul of that person must first be awakened. There are words that are not meant for all of humanity, but only for those whose souls have reached the appointed moment. And you, my child, are standing in that very moment. You opened this message not with your hands, but with a quiet pull from within, something you cannot fully explain with reason. Yet you can feel unmistakably with the entirety of your being. When a soul is called, nothing can stop it. No circumstance, no exhaustion, no fear can halt the stream of light moving toward you. You have walked through long seasons filled with hurt, self-doubt, and questions that seem to have no answers. You have lived with the feeling that you must constantly hold yourself together, that you must be stronger than what life has allowed you to be. Yet heaven has never forgotten you. Not one step you took was outside his sight. And now he wants to remind you of the inheritance that was established for you, the portion that no one else can take, the portion no enemy can steal if you stand in your rightful place. This inheritance is not only the visible blessings, work, opportunities, the right relationships, but also the invisible ones that carry immeasurable worth, spiritual safety, steadfastness of heart, clarity in discernment, and a peace so deep others cannot comprehend it. Your inheritance may have been delayed by those who wanted to slow you down, who tried to mix their shadows with your light, who clouded your intuition with their chaotic energy. But once this veil is lifted, every delay will shatter. What belongs to you will return to you. What comes from heaven will slip out of the enemy's hands and settle exactly where it belongs, into yours. Beyond this restored inheritance, a powerful covering of protection is being released over you. I do not allow the darkness to touch you without warning you first, and I do not allow it to win. Every warning from me always comes with a plan of protection, a band of light, an unseen intervention, a gentle shift that keeps harm from reaching your soul as it intends. When I lift the veil, it means I have already stationed angels around you. When I reveal the truth, it means I have already opened a way out. When I point out the danger, it means I have already chosen to rescue you from it. My child, there is a verse once written that says, "He covers you with his wings, and under his wings you will find refuge." I do not need to quote it word for word, because your soul has known its meaning for a long time. I remind you of it today not so you can memorize another line, but so you can feel its deeper truth. You are standing under the shadow of the one who never sleeps, never departs from you, and never allows you to be left at the mercy of those who intend you harm. His protection is not an idea, it is reality. It surrounds you even now as you read these words. As you take in these lines, you may find your heartbeat slowing, your breath easing, your spirit settling. This is your sign that heaven's peace is touching you. My warnings do not pull you into fear. They pull you into clarity. They open your eyes to see more clearly, while holding you so you do not collapse under the weight of what is revealed. They tell you what is coming, but they also tell you who goes before you. You are not walking this path alone. Look back at the recent days and you will realize you have been sensing something unusual. A gentle pull, a quiet forewarning, a feeling that the atmosphere around you is shifting. These were not random emotions. They were small bells ringing before the thunder arrives. They were heaven's preparation for the moment you are about to step into, a moment when truth will shine so brightly that nothing and no one will be able to hide from it. Without today's warning, you would walk into that truth unprepared. But because I love you, I must speak first. My dear child, keep your heart open. Receive this word, not with anxiety, but with reverence and gratitude. You are not being warned because you are weak. You are being warned because you are chosen. You are not being reminded because you are lacking. You are being reminded because your future is far too weighty to be compromised. You are not being called because you are about to fall. You are being called because you are stepping into a season the enemy is desperately trying to obstruct, but cannot. For heaven has already gone ahead of you. My beloved child, for a long time I have whispered to your spirit through signs so small, so delicate, that if you relied only on logic, you would easily dismiss them as nothing more than overthinking. One of the very first signs was the shift in someone's tone, someone you once considered close to your heart. It was not a dramatic change, not an obvious attack, but something far more subtle and difficult to name. The warmth in their voice faded slightly. Their replies grew slower or more detached. The smile that once accompanied their words no longer felt complete. When you shared your joy, instead of joining in its brightness, their voice softened to a quiet dullness, or they gently steered the conversation elsewhere. When you spoke of dreams, instead of cheering you on, they released questions that made you second-guess your own confidence. At first, you explained things to them. Later, you explained things to yourself. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're dealing with something personal. Maybe I'm just too sensitive. But in truth, each time their tone shifted, something moved in the spiritual realm, an outward sweetness no longer aligned with what was silently growing inside them. Then there were the moments when you unexpectedly heard your name spoken in strange contexts. A friend mentioned that someone brought you up in a conversation you were never part of. A vague comment on social media unsettled you, even though it wasn't directly aimed at you. A half-joking remark, a laugh paired with a sideways glance. A casual "I heard this about you" pierced your heart like a small needle. Your name, the name I inscribed with love and purpose, was being used as a small piece in someone else's narrative. Sometimes for comparison, sometimes to diminish, sometimes simply to stir drama. You felt the discomfort, yet you swallowed it. You assumed you were overreacting. But above, every time your name was spoken with an intention twisted away from truth and love, heaven recorded it as a ripple in the spiritual atmosphere. Not a single whisper about you escapes my hearing. Not a single insinuation slips past the listening realm of heaven. And when such murmurs accumulate long enough, I know it is time for you to understand your name is being mishandled by someone you still consider familiar. In these recent days, you have often felt unsettled without knowing why. Some mornings you woke up not wanting to speak to anyone, even though the night before seemed perfectly ordinary. Some evenings you felt drained not because of work, not because of your physical body, but because of an unseen heaviness clinging to your mind. You passed through familiar places, saw familiar faces, heard familiar words, yet walked away carrying a quiet emptiness you could not explain. You sat among people, laughter rising around you, yet something inside you tightened. You didn't know what to call it, so you chose silence, believing you were simply being emotionally fragile. But my child, this is not mere moodiness. This is your spirit reacting to an energy that does not belong to you, a warning that something unhealthy has been forming behind your back. Each time you tried to silence that feeling with logic, you unintentionally muted the very alarm I placed within you to protect you. I want you to understand that while you have been trying to ignore the situation, the other person has not been standing still. They have been quietly planning, adjusting their words, choosing their timing, observing reactions, and preparing for a final move, an action capable of shifting the entire atmosphere around you in a single direction. That move could be a decisive remark spoken in front of someone important, a fabricated story told with convincing sincerity, a sudden withdrawal at the exact moment you need them most, a last-minute betrayal that leaves you exposed and carrying the burden alone, a crafted narrative designed to turn others against you, or even a deliberate act meant to damage your reputation, your opportunities, or your peace. They have not considered these things only once. They have vividly imagined the scenario, weighed the consequences, and still chosen to follow the dark intention in their heart. Before December 25th arrives, that final move is being prepared. This is why I must speak to you now, so that when the moment draws near, you will no longer stand in a passive position, no longer be pulled along like someone unaware, but instead become the one who has been forewarned, prepared, and protected. In all of this, your intuition is the most powerful instrument in spiritual warfare. Intuition is not guesswork. It is the way your soul speaks to you, the internal radar I placed within you so you could sense what the eyes cannot see. The enemy despises your intuition because whenever it awakens, its plans become easier to recognize. That is why it tries to keep you distracted, drowning in self-doubt, convincing you that you are paranoid, too sensitive, or overthinking. It wants you to silence the alarm within so you rely only on what you see or hear, things that can be disguised, painted over, or staged. Yet your soul notices the subtle shift in someone's tone, the unexplainable discomfort after an interaction, the strange heaviness following a seemingly harmless conversation. That is your intuition doing exactly what it was created to do. In spiritual warfare, intuition is not a weapon for attack. It is the shield that tells you when to step back, when to stay silent, when to share less, and when to change direction. It shows you when a story sounds reasonable, yet carries no breath of truth. It alerts you with an inner uneasiness when someone enters your life with sweet words, but energy or intention that does not align. It gives you that quiet tightening in your chest when your name is being used in ways that are not right. And if you listen, it will always guide you closer to the light, pulling you away from places that can wound your soul. I am teaching you to pay attention to these small signs, not so that you live in suspicion of everyone, but so you learn to honor the inner voice I placed within you, a vital part of your divine design. You do not need to become distrustful, but you are allowed to become discerning. You do not need to build walls against everyone, but you have the right to set boundaries with those who drain your spirit. You do not need to judge others, but you must recognize who does not belong in the future I am leading you into. And intuition is the bridge between the warnings of heaven and your actions on earth. My child, remember every small shift you once dismissed as meaningless. Remember the moments when their tone was no longer warm, the times your name appeared in conversations you were not present for, the sudden squeeze in your heart that had no clear cause. These were not empty fragments. They were signals strung together from above. The lines I have written into your soul to guide you to this moment, the moment when the curtain begins to lift, when you realize you were never guessing, only not trusting deeply enough in the voice I placed within you. From this point forward, walk with your inner ears wide open, for in this spiritual battle, your intuition illuminated and guided by me will be one of the greatest protections over your life. My beloved child, after all the signs, the warnings, the gentle yet persistent waves of uneasiness, I am now inviting you to step into a new realm of light, not through an external ritual, not through a simple click, not through any surface-level action, but through something far deeper within you, registering into the light through the inward consent of your own spirit. You often associate the word register with filling out a form, agreeing to a condition, or signaling approval with the press of a button. But in the divine realm, to register into the light means choosing, with your entire soul, to stand with truth, to stand with what is pure, to stand with what comes from me, while also stepping out of the orbit of every energy that drains you, misleads you, or dims your clarity. It is a silent yet authoritative yes, rising from the deepest chambers of your heart. I agree for the light to search me, guard me, and lead me. I no longer wish to compromise with the darkness disguised in pleasant words. When you speak this to me, without needing to utter a sound, without writing it down, with only a breath woven into a sincere thought, the door to a new layer of protection immediately opens over your life. When you register into the light in this way, you are also granting the angels authority to intervene more deeply in the space around you. There are things no human strength can carry, schemes crafted over months, slander woven so subtly it can slip into the minds of others, lingering layers of jealousy that cling to you, relationships whose cords have long embedded themselves into your emotions, memories, and shared history. If you rely solely on your own effort, you will feel as though you are trying to untie aching knots with trembling hands, only to make them tighter. But when you say to me, Lord, I cannot cleanse every invisible thread by myself. Please allow the angels to act where my hands cannot reach. A hidden army begins to move instantly. They step into rooms where you are not present to slow down words that were about to rise against you. They place confusion into the plans of the enemy so that their schemes collide and reveal their own weaknesses. They stand at the threshold of meetings not ordained by me and cause them to be suddenly postponed or to disappear entirely. They intervene within your mind, guarding you from being swept away by negative thoughts that do not belong to you. You may not see these things with your eyes, but your soul will feel them. Situations that seemed on the verge of erupting suddenly dissolve. Worries that felt overwhelming soften and fade. Plans formed against you lose their strength and fall apart. I want you to understand the difference between true light and the imitation that merely resembles it. True light always brings ease to the soul, even when it exposes things that are difficult to accept. True light may require you to face wounds, lies, or connections you must release, yet it simultaneously grants you strength, peace, and an unmistakable sense of being exactly where you are meant to be, something no other source can provide. In true light, you are not forced to perform, not compelled to smile while your heart is breaking, not instructed to stay silent while your intuition cries out. Wherever true light goes, real darkness retreats, not because it chooses to, but because it cannot stand. In contrast, imitation light carries an invisible pressure. You feel the need to pretend to be happy, to pretend to believe, to pretend nothing is wrong, simply to maintain appearances, to avoid offending someone, or to avoid being labeled as difficult. Imitation light can be wrapped in sweet words, polite gestures, or well-timed compliments. But if you listen deeply, you will sense that your soul is not being nourished. You leave those conversations heavier, with less confidence, more confusion. True light brings clarity, imitation brings fog. When I invite you into the light, I am inviting you into a place where pretense has no room to hide. This may startle you for a moment, because it means that certain people, certain relationships, may no longer appear as good as they once did in your eyes. But my child, you lose nothing of value when the light reveals what is real. You only lose illusions. And illusions, even though they may soothe you for a moment, can never shield you from the arrows shot behind your back. I do not want you comforted by fantasies I want you protected by truth. Therefore, the call to step into the light is also a call to allow everything untrue to fall away, to accept that not everyone is meant to walk with you to the end, and to face the truth that some who smile at you do not rejoice at your rising. From this point forward, I will begin guiding you closer to recognizing the identity of the one who has stood behind all the spiritual disturbances you have endured in this recent season. I will not unveil that name as a sudden blow meant to make you collapse, but as a veil slowly lifted, giving every cell in your soul time to prepare, to adjust, and to accept. When you register into the light through your inner connection, you are telling me, I am ready to see, ready to know, ready to release, and I, in my love, will walk with you through each step of this unfolding. I will allow your intuition to touch it first, your heart to tremble before your mind begins to identify it. You will start to see old fragments, comments, glances, moments when your energy suddenly dropped, side conversations that once seemed insignificant, coming together as if they had always belonged to one picture. A face will emerge where once there was only a faint outline. You will no longer struggle to wonder whether you misunderstood someone, because the light will shine so clearly that denial will no longer be possible. But before I point to anyone, I want to ensure that you are standing firmly in my light, not in anger or bitterness. My light does not come to turn you into someone who seeks revenge. It comes to free you from a cord of bondage. When the angel handles what human strength cannot carry, that includes shielding your heart from being stained by resentment. You are not called to hold the name of the one who wished harm upon you. You are called to hold the name of the one who delivered you from their plan. Therefore, as we step into the next part, where the identity behind it all will be brought into clarity, remember that you are walking in the light, wrapped in the promise that everything I reveal is intended to bring you closer to freedom, to protection, and to the inheritance I ordained for you from the very beginning. My beloved child, as you enter this portion of the message, I want you to look back on your journey with clearer, deeper, and more awakened eyes. For when your soul begins to open, you will realize that God never once allowed you to walk alone. He sent warnings in countless ways, ranging from the obvious to the faintest whisper. Yet because your heart was gentle, patient, or too accustomed to enduring everything quietly, you dismissed them as if they were merely normal. There were nights when you lay down and your soul found no rest. You saw dreams that seemed unrelated, yet you woke with an unshakable sense that something was off, something you couldn't name. There were moments in those dreams where you stood at a crossing, one path blazing with light and the other dim and uncertain, and you did not know which way to step. Other nights, a blurred face appeared, or a voice moved like wind through your sleep, urging caution. But when you woke, you told yourself it was just a dream. You brushed it aside because you did not want to become suspicious or anxious without reason. Yet in the heavenly realm, each of those dreams was a deliberate message. Nothing shown to you was random. No moment of discomfort ever brushed against your soul without purpose. Then there were days when you were working, speaking, or moving through your routine, and suddenly a heaviness pressed against your chest. It wasn't physical pain, it was the tightening of your spirit, a warning signal your mind could not interpret. Yet your heart understood instantly. You assumed it was stress. You assumed it was fatigue. You assumed it was a health concern. But the truth is that every time that unexplainable heaviness came upon you, something in the spiritual realm was shaking in connection to your life, perhaps a word spoken against you, a jealous thought directed toward you, or a plan quietly being formed with your name in it. Each of these moments was a knock on the door of your awareness, urging you to pay attention. Your intuition has been one of the clearest channels through which I have sent warnings. Every time you encountered a certain person and felt more drained than uplifted, it was not random. Every time you stood near someone and felt uneasy, even though they smiled at you, it was not because you were overly sensitive. Every time you were about to share something important but a sudden don't rose within you, that was the voice of heaven speaking. But you, wanting to keep peace, wanting to avoid hurting anyone, wanting not to seem mistrustful, kept persuading yourself that all of it was merely emotional reaction or a moment of moodiness. My child, I speak this to you with love, yet also with the seriousness of heaven. You have lived far too long, treating spiritual warnings as if they were merely ordinary human fluctuations. You have denied the gift of discernment I placed within you, simply because you feared that if you acknowledged it, you would have to face a truth you were not ready to confront. But now, I speak to you with strength, clarity, and without concealment. It is time to awaken. Awakening does not mean living in suspicion of everyone. Awakening means opening the eyes of your spirit to recognize what is true and what is false, who is sent by me, and who carries an energy that does not come from the light. You have walked through too many trials to continue living with your eyes tightly shut. You have endured enough blows from behind to keep believing that everyone is good simply because they know how to smile. Awakening means returning to the very essence I designed within you, a soul capable of seeing beyond the surface, a mind capable of discernment, a heart capable of being guided by the Holy Spirit rather than by the fear of being abandoned. My child, I want to remind you of a symbol you have heard of before, but have never truly felt with your whole soul: the Lion of the tribe of Judah. The Lion of Judah is not an image of violence, but a symbol of authority, reassurance, majesty, and undefeatable strength. The Lion of Judah does not roar to terrify. He roars to awaken the souls that have slept far too long. He roars to announce that the enemy is no longer permitted to draw any closer. He roars to remind you that you are not a lost sheep, but one standing under the protection of supreme power. Within the roar of the Lion of Judah, there is something that stirs your soul awake. It says, stand tall. Remember who you belong to. Remember you will no longer be led astray by sweet disguises. And from that very roar, I want you to understand the deeper meaning of becoming a spiritual warrior. You often imagine a warrior as someone wielding swords, wearing armor, screaming in the middle of a battlefield. But in the heavenly realm, a spiritual warrior looks entirely different. A warrior is one who knows how to pause when the soul warns. A warrior is one who knows how to step back when the light says, step back, and to move when the voice from above says, move. A warrior is not swayed by fleeting emotions, not fooled by gentle words, not blinded by appearances. A warrior knows that kindness is not always truth, and silence is not always peace. A spiritual warrior hears the voice of heaven in the smallest things: a prompting, a breath, a weight on the chest, a dream that seems insignificant. A warrior knows that not every intuition comes from themselves. Often, it is direct intervention from an angel. A warrior never dismisses subtle signs, because they understand that the spiritual battle has never been loud. It unfolds in quiet, in delicate shifts, in moments where the heart beats out of rhythm. You do not become a warrior by being outwardly strong. You become a warrior by being inwardly unshakable. By choosing to trust the voice of heaven more than the words spoken by deceptive mouths. By placing loyalty to the light above the fear of losing a relationship. By understanding that not everyone deserves access to your soul just because they once had access to your physical presence. My child, it is time for you to step into that role. It is time for your soul to awaken. It is time for you to become exactly what I shaped you to be: a spiritual warrior, alert, strong, wise, and no longer easily swayed by sugar-coated words. You will no longer live passively. You will no longer ignore dreams, promptings, or subtle signals. You will no longer treat heavenly warnings as ordinary, because from this very moment, heaven is speaking clearly. You must awaken. You must rise. You must see. And when you step into that role, no darkness will be able to hide the truth from your eyes any longer. You will hear my voice more distinctly. You will notice signs more quickly. You will walk with greater strength. And most importantly, you will no longer be deceived by the enemy's small tricks. The Lion of Judah is standing. Heaven is shifting. And the spiritual warrior within you is being awakened. My beloved child, I want to lead you deeper into a reality the physical eye has never seen. But your soul has sensed many times the gatherings in the heavenly realm concerning your very destiny. You once believed your life was simply a sequence of small choices, coincidences, collisions, endurance, and survival. But in the spiritual realm, every step you take, every season you live through, every turn you fall into is placed upon the foundation of a plan far greater than you have imagined. You have blamed yourself more times than you can count, thinking perhaps you did something wrong to be targeted, slandered, envied, or drawn into harmful relationships. But today I tell you plainly, it is not because you were too wrong, it is because your destiny is too great. It is not because you are ordinary, it is because there is a calling on your name that disturbs the darkness. In heaven, your name is not written in some shadowed corner. It lies open on a scroll at the center of a spiritual assembly, where angels, authorities, and the invisible realm are informed that you are entering a critical season of transformation. In those gatherings, they were not discussing your small mistakes. They were speaking about the influence you would carry once you stood in the place meant for you. They were not digging up old failures to condemn you. They were examining what you had learned from those wounds and how you would use them to lift others up. The enemy, when it looks at your life from the spiritual realm, does not see you as insignificant. It sees you as a future hot point, a place where light will erupt with force if it is not intercepted early. Because of this, it relentlessly tries to slip in, disrupt, distract, and make you doubt yourself. It knows that if you dare to believe in what heaven has ordained for you, it will lose a major opportunity to damage many other souls through you. In the name of truth, I say this: what you are experiencing is not a result of being not good enough, but evidence that you have already been seen in the courts of heaven. To hinder someone with a great destiny, darkness rarely uses strangers. It does not send you a completely new face, someone obvious, someone easy to distrust. It does not come to you in the form of a clearly defined adversary, because if that were the case, you would be alert immediately. Instead, it chooses someone familiar, someone you once trusted, once opened your heart to, once confided in, someone you once believed would surely stand on your side. That person is sent as a kind of bait, not because they were born to do wrong, but because within them are unhealed hollows, wounds that have not yet been illuminated, fears of being overshadowed that have not yet been brought to the table under the light. Those hollow spaces become open doors through which darkness whispers, distorts their emotions, and uses their own insecurity as a weapon against you. On the surface, this person may appear deeply appealing. They may have a way of speaking that makes others feel heard. They may show up at the exact moment you need someone nearby. They may say things that make you feel as if you have finally found someone who understands you. They know how to smile at the right time, share at the right moment, express care through subtle gestures not everyone possesses. All of these make you relax, lower your guard, and widen your trust. But beneath that polished exterior, another current begins to take shape each time you rise. A small voice inside them whispers, Why them and not me? Each time your name is mentioned with honor, something inside them tightens with a pain they do not wish to admit. Each time you receive something good, a part of them feels threatened. They begin observing you not to love, but to compare. They begin listening to you not to understand, but to record, measure, and sometimes use your very trust as a blade turned back against you. This is the hidden toxicity behind a compelling exterior. Toxicity is not always shouting, insulting, or direct attack. Sometimes it is a strange look, quickly covered by a smile. A compliment paired with a subtle remark that unsettles you. A silence at the exact moment you need them to speak up. Or the familiar sentence, "I'm only saying this because I care," after which you only feel smaller on the inside. Toxicity is when your soul feels drained after each interaction, but your rational mind finds no clear evidence to accuse them. Toxicity is when they can still perform kind acts, still help you to some degree, yet gradually push you into doubting yourself, doubting your intuition, and doubting even the value that God has placed within you. In the spiritual meetings concerning your life, none of this is overlooked. I do not view your relationship with them based only on surface moments. I see the entire impact it has on your soul. I see every message you send, every response you receive, and the wave of emotion that enters you afterward. I see every thought this person cultivates in the shadows, comparisons, internal judgments, silent conclusions aimed at you. I see how they speak about you to others, adding, subtracting, coloring while maintaining a gentle tone. And right now, in the heavenly realm, this person is in a zone of evaluation, because the decision they are preparing to make will have significant consequences for you. That decision may be a single statement that shifts someone's perception of you. It may be a moment when they choose to stand with another person instead of defending you, even though they know the truth. It may be the moment they reveal something you shared in confidence to someone else, under the guise of concern, yet actually placing you at a disadvantage. It may be their participation in a harmful conversation, or as simple as their refusal to stop a misunderstanding when they had the chance. Whatever the form, their next step will be like a stone thrown into a lake. The ripples will reach much farther than they expect. It may touch your reputation, touch the opportunity drawing near, touch other relationships you once believed were safe. Because of this, the gathering in the heavenly realm at this moment is not speaking about you alone, it is also speaking about them. The angels are reporting the movements happening inside their hearts, the whispered words, the half-formed decisions, the gentle inner nudges they repeatedly ignored. I have touched their conscience many times. Just as I have touched your soul, I have given them opportunities to stop, to turn back, to choose love over jealousy, to choose faithfulness over manipulation. But if they insist on continuing down a path that takes them farther and farther away from the light, then the consequences will not remain only within their personal storyline, they will spill over into your sphere as well. And because you are the chosen one, the one carrying a significant destiny, I will not allow that to unfold without warning you first. I am alerting you about the one who stands too close, yet carries harmful intentions, not to make you fearful or push everyone away, but to help you establish boundaries in the light. Not everyone who stands near you is permitted to stand near your soul. Not everyone who knows your story is allowed to remain in a close role in the coming seasons. There are people who are only assigned to walk with you for a certain stretch of the journey. If you keep dragging them forward, you will pay for it with your peace, your time, and sometimes even the opportunities heaven has arranged for you. The person standing closest to you without a straight heart is always the one capable of wounding you the deepest, and it is no surprise that the enemy loves to place its bait in that position. My child, in that spiritual atmosphere, I am looking directly at you and saying this: you no longer need to guess on your own. You no longer need to keep excusing the energies that drain you. You no longer need to tell yourself they probably mean well, only to continue being hurt. I will not allow someone who stands too close with harmful intent to keep quietly manipulating your space. What is being discussed in the heavenly realm today is the very act of pulling you out of that vulnerable zone and simultaneously bringing the truth about this person closer to the light. My beloved child, as you step into this portion of the message, I want you to know that your name, the name you have always considered simply a normal part of your earthly identity, actually carries far more weight than you realize. In the natural realm, a name is just a way to call one another, to identify one another before people. But in the spiritual realm, a name is a seal, an engraving, a frequency vibrating with destiny, promise, and divine protection. Your name does not drift aimlessly. It resounds in places your soul has never physically stepped into. And it is spoken in spiritual councils where angels and radiant powers deliberate over what is coming upon your life. In those councils, when your name is spoken, it does not sound like a human word, it appears as light. Your name shines like a symbol, like a star marked in the spiritual sky. The angels look at that luminous name on heaven's board and immediately understand that you are entering a significant phase, a threshold between risk and breakthrough. Those councils do not speak using human language, but through the vibration of truth. And when your name glows upon that spiritual horizon, all of heaven recognizes that you must be covered, protected, and guided into a safer realm where light outweighs the darkness attempting to cling to you. During those gatherings, Michael the Archangel, the commander of the realm of light, has risen to his feet when your name is mentioned. He does not rise out of alarm, he rises out of duty. His long-appointed calling is to guard the souls destined for greatness, the very ones darkness tries to sabotage at the root. When the light shines upon your name, the angels know the hour of action has come. Michael's sword, the blade, forged from pure light, has been drawn, not to strike flesh, but to sever the unseen influences circling around you, the whispers, the envy, the hidden malice, the silent comparisons, the glances that overstep boundaries, the seemingly harmless words carrying motives designed to cause your soul to shrink. Michael does not draw his sword after everything has already happened. He draws it before the harm unfolds to block, to neutralize, to blur the enemy's strategies. When your name is spoken, his sword glows so brightly that even the darkness recoils. Have you ever felt that certain wrong situations almost happened but somehow halted at the last second? That a strange conversation nearly damaged your reputation but suddenly quieted? That a sense of danger nearly brushed against you but you passed through, untouched, as if shielded by an invisible barrier? This was not coincidence. This was Michael's sword at work in the spiritual realm, cutting down the arrows launched toward you. My child, when the heavens speak of your name, no one mentions your mistakes or your shortcomings. They speak of purpose. They speak of calling. They speak of who you will become when you step into the place that was designed for you. They speak of how deeply you are capable of influencing other souls. They speak of the light you can bring into the lives of those around you. Yet while they speak of these things, they also see what has been clinging to you, a delay, a weariness, an energy that does not belong near you, a person standing too close whose intentions are not pure. And that is why I must speak to you with a clarity that leaves no room for confusion. Your hesitation is no longer safe. You once believed that hesitation was caution, that slowing down would help you see more clearly, that giving something more time would eventually bring clarity. But, my child, when heaven declares those words, it means that the spiritual timeline has reached a point where your reluctance can become a doorway for darkness. There are seasons in which you may slow your pace, but this is not one of them. The one aiming at you has gone farther than you realize. They have prepared their final step. They have already begun sowing seeds that could harm you later if you do not move quickly into the light. Your hesitation now is no longer caution. It has become danger. It keeps you standing in a gray zone where the angels cannot fully act on your behalf as long as you continue holding on to the connections I have been urging you to release. Heaven sees all things. You cannot see it all. But I see them shifting their eyes when you turn away. I see them choosing silence at the very moment you need them to speak. I see the way they talk about you when you are not present. I see every word they release into the atmosphere, just subtle enough to avoid suspicion, yet sharp enough to cause others to question you. I see every glance you do not understand. I see the advice they give, sounding sincere yet pulling you off your path. I see how they watch you with a mixture of admiration and envy, concern and quiet desire for your downfall. I see the calculations in their heart, the very things they themselves are afraid to admit. And when I see these things, I cannot allow you to walk forward without warning you. These revelations are the bridge leading you into the next step of this journey, recognizing the identity of the enemy. Not an enemy who wields a knife or raises a weapon. Not an enemy who shouts or threatens loudly, but an enemy dressed in the garments of friendship, care, sweetness, and closeness. An enemy your heart does not want to believe is real. An enemy you once defended. An enemy you once cried over. An enemy you once believed would never do anything to harm you. But, my child, heaven cannot pretend. Light cannot close its eyes to darkness. Every spiritual council held regarding your name revolves around one truth you must see clearly before stepping into the next portion of your destiny. That is why I have been guiding you step by step, from quiet signs to unmistakable warnings, from intuition to revelation, not to make you afraid, but to set you free, not to make you hate anyone, but to separate you from the toxic threads that have been slowly draining your soul. My beloved child, before I lead you deeper into the full unveiling of the darkness rising from places you have not yet been able to see, I want to place within your heart a truth that cannot be shaken. I am not angry with you. You have carried far too much self-blame, convincing yourself that the heaviness you feel must be a sign of weakness or failure. You believed that the unease, the exhaustion, the inner suffocation were proof that you lacked strength, clarity, or discernment, that you somehow should have known better than to trust the people you unintentionally opened your heart to. But, my child, I see the entire path you have walked. I see how hard you have tried to love even with a heart still marked by wounds. I see how you have chosen trust over suspicion, patience over judgment, and compassion over abandonment. None of these choices were mistakes. None of these choices stirred my anger. On the contrary, I cherish you for that very purity, the purity you yourself often forget you carry. The heaviness you have been carrying throughout this recent season, the mornings when you wake up with an invisible weight pressing against your chest, the nights when you lie still but your heart cannot loosen its grip, the moments when you feel as if something is circling around you. None of these are signs of psychological instability, as you once assumed. They are the most honest reactions of your soul to betrayal. When someone you once trusted begins to shift, when their loyalty leans toward distorted thoughts, when they allow impure intentions to cling to their heart, it is your soul, not your mind, that senses it first. Your soul always moves ahead, always knows beforehand, always trembles long before things take a visible shape. These heavy sensations are warnings sent from the deepest part of you, the place where I planted a sacred intuition to protect you from dangers your physical eyes cannot detect. What you call baseless anxiety is, in truth, a spiritual alarm. What you call sudden exhaustion is actually the collision between the light within you and an approaching darkness. What you call unexpected mood drops is the signal of your soul trying to escape the toxic energy of someone you still consider close. Your spirit is always more sensitive than your reasoning. And that is the gift I placed within you from the moment you were born. The mind can be deceived by sweet words, by familiarity, by charming appearances, by beautiful memories, but the soul is never deceived. It recognizes shifts in another person's energetic frequency, a slightly altered gaze, a smile that no longer feels natural, a sentence layered with hidden meaning, a silence held just a bit too long. Your soul felt all of it. Yet you, because of your kindness and purity, kept convincing yourself that perhaps I'm overthinking. Perhaps they didn't mean anything by it. Perhaps I'm just too sensitive. You tried to protect them instead of protecting yourself. You allowed your mind to silence the voice of your soul simply to maintain peace, simply to avoid damaging a relationship you worked so hard to build. But, my child, this person is not merely carrying small shifts in their energy. They have begun approaching others, the very people you believed were standing beside you, in order to gradually expand their scheme. They know that attacking you directly would expose their true nature, so they chose to move around you, planting tiny seeds of doubt in the hearts of those around you, seeds small enough to sound harmless, yet powerful enough to shift someone's perception. They did not say anything too harsh. They said just enough to create an impression that something seems off about you. They did not behave with open malice. They behaved as if they were concerned, as if they were worried for your sake. But it is within this carefully staged concern that they subtly reshaped your image in the eyes of others. Every sentence, every shrug, every sigh, every gentle retelling, each one had a purpose. Skilled manipulators never strike hard. They touch lightly, but precisely. And they touch the exact places you cannot see. That is the sophistication of manipulation. It does not reveal itself with noise. It does not appear in the form of anger. It does not arrive through accusations. It comes through carefully calculated accidents, through questions disguised as concern, through soft suggestions that make you question your own worth, through shared stories that pull others closer to them, through narratives subtly edited to elevate them while diminishing you. Toxicity is not always a shout. Sometimes it is a delicate whisper, and that is exactly what makes it so deceiving. My child, I see every word they have spoken behind your back. I see the true thoughts inside their heart, the thoughts they themselves refuse to face. I see how long they have been planning, what they have been calculating, and whom they have been pulling into their circle. I see the moments when they stood before a choice, and each time, they chose the path that led them further away from the light. I see the words they intended to release about you, and I have stopped them many times. But now they are moving further, bolder, and more recklessly. And that is why I am speaking to you today with a seriousness you have never heard before. My beloved child, I want you to pause for a moment and look deeply into the larger picture unfolding around your life. Because what your eyes can see is only a small fragment of what I am arranging in silence. You can feel, though you have not yet named it, that a great breakthrough is drawing very near. Not a small shift, not a few pleasant events, but a turning point that marks an entire change of season for both your soul and your life. In recent days, you may have noticed something different about yourself. Your thoughts have deepened, your endurance has strengthened, and the way you respond to pain has matured. You assumed this was simply the natural result of going through a lot. But in the realm of heaven, I call this the preparation stage before a great blessing is released. No true breakthrough ever arrives in superficial conditions. It is always preceded by months of refining that you once believed were meaningless. I allowed you to walk through dry places so the roots of your faith would grow deeper, so that when the rain of breakthrough finally pours down, you would not collapse under the very goodness you have been waiting for. The delays you have endured were never failures, nor were they the careless silence of heaven. They were preservation. There were moments when you sat in stillness, watching opportunities that seemed close enough to touch slip through your fingers. And you wondered, am I not good enough? Am I not worthy? Has God forgotten me? But the truth is that I saw certain things which, had they arrived too early, would not have lifted you, they would have crushed you. I saw the faces surrounding you in those seasons, saw their true intentions, saw the direction their hearts were leaning. I knew that if you rose too quickly, while still being tied to harmful connections, you would pay for it with your peace and with the purity of your spirit. And so I slowed certain doors, not to punish you, but to shield you from stepping into a higher place, accompanied by people whose hearts were not aligned with truth. I withheld blessings the way a father hides a gift until the right moment, not because he does not want to give, but because he loves enough to wait until his child matures a little more. And while you thought everything in your life had come to a standstill, in the unseen realm, the energy around your name was vibrating more intensely. The enemy sensed it. It did not understand my full plan for you, but it felt the shift rising within your spirit, a shift beyond its control. It saw the days when you no longer collapsed under pain the way you once did. It saw the nights when your tears no longer came from despair, but from a quiet, deeper, steadier way of calling on me. It saw that you no longer believed every seemingly kind word so easily, that you began to hold back, to discern, to listen to the voice within. It noticed how you gradually withdrew from empty conversations, from relationships steeped in emotional dependence, from environments that made your soul shrink. All of this terrified the enemy, because it knew that the closer you moved toward inner freedom, the less influence it could exert on you from the outside. It understood that if it did not act during this fragile window, you would break free from its grip forever. So it began to accelerate through the person who had stood too close to you for too long. It started gathering allies, planting doubts, and creating subtle fractures in the relationships around you. Some of these people were unaware, some easily swayed, some weak-hearted, never realizing they were being used as links in a much wider chain, a plan whose ultimate aim was to drain you, to drain your emotions, to drain your faith, to drain the confidence I had placed inside you. There were conversations you never knew took place, where your name appeared alongside words sprinkled with a flavor of concern, worry, or understanding, while the true purpose was to cloud the way others perceived you. There were moments when someone who once cherished you suddenly felt unsure about you without knowing why that was, when the seed of doubt had already been planted in their heart. There were connections that became strangely fragile without any specific incident, simply because the atmosphere around you had been quietly altered. None of this happened in a single day. It was mapped out over many months, layer by layer, detail by detail. That person watched your reactions closely, how you became angry, how you became sad, how easily you forgave, how deeply you trusted, where you were most vulnerable. Every piece of information they gathered became a future arrow. They knew you feared disappointing others, and they used that fear to keep you enduring longer than you should. They knew you valued relationships with history, and they used that to hold you near them, even when your soul longed to walk away. They knew you disliked conflict, and they used that to keep you silent, to make you too hesitant to voice your unease. They built a delicate web where every exit seemed blurred, where you felt convinced that your only option was to keep enduring, to keep trying to understand them, to keep shrinking yourself, to keep ignoring the voice of your own intuition. This does not mean you must rise up to retaliate, expose, or confront. No, that is not how I work in your life. I have not called you to be the judge. I have called you to be the protected one, the delivered one, the one brought out of the danger zone. Once their name has been written in the book of exposure, Your task is not to hunt for evidence to condemn them, but to take a step back within your heart. Hand me the authority to deal with the matter, and allow the angels to enter places you cannot reach. You may witness pieces of truth falling away from their mask, not for your satisfaction, but to affirm that you were never crazy, never overthinking, never suspicious without cause. I do this to return to your soul the dignity it deserves, you sensed correctly. And the issue was never that you were too sensitive, but that you stood too close to someone who was not honest with their own heart. My child, a great breakthrough is standing right at your threshold. Delay has not destroyed your future. It has preserved that future from being tainted by the wrong hands. The enemy may have drawn up plans for months, but I wrote your story long before this world began. And in that story, darkness does not hold the final chapter. Those dark pages are only brief interruptions, soon to be flipped aside, exposed, and dissolved by the light. What you are invited to do now is not tremble and worry, but stand firm in the certainty that heaven has seen, has recorded, and is moving for your eternal good. Beloved child, perhaps in these recent days, you have sensed a kind of movement in the atmosphere around you, something difficult to name. Nothing loud has happened. No dramatic event has burst open before your eyes. Yet the atmosphere feels different, heavy, yet light, quiet, yet bright, still, yet full of motion. There are moments when you sit alone and suddenly feel as though everything around you is holding its breath, waiting for something to unfold. You do not know how to explain this feeling to others, because if you speak it aloud, you fear they will say you are imagining things. But in the heavenly realm, I call it the awakening of the spiritual atmosphere, the moment when angels begin to move more powerfully around your life, when invisible doors open, and new currents from above begin to pour out. When angels move, you may not always see light, but you will certainly feel the internal shifts, clearer thoughts, sharper emotions, things you once overlooked slowly rising into focus, and people who stood beside you, revealing themselves more fully in their true nature. Have you noticed that your intuition has grown strangely stronger? There are things you only need to glance at to know something is off. There are relationships where even a small interaction reveals an invisible distance. Though everything seems friendly on the surface, there are situations that have not fully unfolded. Yet you already sense the outcome if you continue forward. You assumed this was sensitivity shaped by past wounds. But I tell you, it is evidence that heaven is drawing near. When I come close to a soul, the dust upon their spiritual eyes begins to fall away. When I assign angels to move more intensely around someone, their intuition sharpens not to make them proud, but to protect them. Your intuition, when placed under my guidance, is not merely a vague feeling, but a small bell that rings before the thunder arrives. It tells you where to step in, where to step out, whom to open your heart to, and whom to hand over to me instead of trying to hold on to them yourself. My child, there is one sentence I want to inscribe boldly upon your heart at this moment. The spiritual veil is almost lifted. This means that what was once hidden behind layers of pretense, glamour, habit, history, or misplaced attachment is about to come into clear light. That veil is not torn away in a shocking moment that overwhelms you, but lifted gradually, layer by layer, just enough for your soul to adapt, prepare, and receive. You will begin to understand why you felt so heavy these past months. You will start to piece together events, words, reactions, and fleeting waves of unease that you had once dismissed as trivial. You will realize that every fragment was part of a larger picture that I am now bringing before your eyes. The veil lifts not to make you build higher walls, but to help you step out of the room of deception and into the space of truth, where your soul can breathe, can be itself, and can stand in the light without having to strain just to appear fine. When the veil is nearly lifted, I will lead you into the next layer of truth, deeper, clearer, but also more healing. Truth is not only about knowing who stands behind the spiritual disturbances around you, it is also about understanding why all of this unfolded, why you were chosen to walk through such a process, and why your destiny is significant enough for heaven to gather on your behalf. This next layer of truth does not come to condemn others or stir anger within you. It comes to free you from a role you were never created, to carry the role of someone who must always endure, always excuse others, always blame yourself when you are hurting. That truth will reveal to you that you were never deserving of such treatment, that you were not targeted because of a lack within you, and that the distorted affection someone showed you was never proof that you were not good enough. It will restore to you the sense of worth that misguided words and actions have tried to warp. You are standing at a crossroads between warning and rescue, and that is one of the most sacred places a soul can enter. Warnings come first to awaken you, to keep you from being blindsided, to confirm that you are not imagining things, not overreacting, not making a big deal out of nothing. A warning is heaven's voice saying, "My child, look again, pay attention. Remember that I am here." But if warnings came without rescue, the soul would be left stranded in a barren land, seeing everything, understanding everything, yet having no direction to go. Therefore, I do not only warn, I rescue. Rescue means I prepare exits you have not yet considered. Rescue means I alter certain relationships so you are no longer entangled. Rescue means I orchestrate coincidences that force you to pause, reflect, and reevaluate your place. Rescue means I place an angel beside you so that when the veil is finally lifted, you do not collapse, but are held, steadied, and led away from danger. From this crossroads, every step you take matters. You will begin to notice, in every conversation, glimpses of a truer portrait you once overlooked. You will sense a shift in the atmosphere the moment a certain person enters the room. You will listen more deeply to yourself, no longer dismissing the quiet uneasiness that used to linger beneath your awareness. You will see that sometimes things do not unfold according to your plans. Yet instead of reacting in frustration, you will begin to ask, is God intervening? For once you understand that heaven has awakened on your behalf, you will no longer rush to assume that every delay, every disruption, every sudden change is misfortune or failure. Often, hidden within the very things that appear messy or inconvenient, I am pulling you away from a trap so subtle you never realized you were walking into it. My child, I want you to take a deep breath and recognize that you are not here alone. Heaven is in motion. Angels are at work. Your intuition is growing stronger, not to make you anxious, but to make you aware. The spiritual veil has almost been lifted, and you are about to step into a realm of clarity where nothing will be able to hide its true nature from you anymore. This is not the end of your story. This is the transition point where warning meets rescue, where tears begin to meet comfort, where pain begins to meet purpose. You only need to do one thing: do not turn away from the light again. Allow me to finish what I have begun within you, and then you will see what weighs heavily on your heart today will become tomorrow's testimony that there was a moment when heaven awakened for you. Beloved child, as we step into this part, I want you to prepare your heart as a door slowly opening toward the light, because from here, we are no longer speaking merely about signs, shifts, or warnings. We are going directly into the essence of the energy that has been clinging to your soul throughout this entire season, the very energy you have felt but have never been able to name. I know there were days when you woke up feeling drained, even though you had done nothing strenuous. There were afternoons when sadness rushed into you without reason. as though a sorrow that wasn't yours was trying to press itself into your chest. There were moments when your heart felt heavy as stone, your breath shortened, and your mind grew troubled, even though nothing in your life was visibly going wrong. You assumed it was work, weather, stress, hormones, or random thoughts making you vulnerable. But, my child, I speak this with the certainty of heaven. Those emotions were not born within you. They were the result of that person's envy attaching itself to you. When a person nurtures toxic comparison within themselves, when they look at you and feel threatened by your very light, when they allow distorted thoughts about you to linger in their mind, that energy does not stay contained inside them. It spreads. It slips across spiritual layers, and it finds its way into the unguarded spaces of the soul of the one they have targeted. This is not magic or sorcery. It is a natural mechanism within the spiritual realm. When you think well of someone, you release a gentle stream of energy. When you envy someone, that stream becomes heavy, dark, and adhesive. This person has been looking at you with admiration mixed with bitterness, affection mixed with jealousy, fascination mixed with rivalry. They have placed your name on the scale against their own so many times that the energy overflowed from their heart without them realizing it. And you, because you carry a sensitive spirit, because you belong to the light, because you are deeply connected to the invisible world, have unintentionally absorbed those vibrations, the way someone walking through a smoke-filled room inhales particles they cannot see. My child, I want you to understand clearly and with full reassurance that these heavy vibrations do not belong to you, have never belonged to you, and will never belong to you. You are not weak because your emotions fluctuate. You are not pessimistic because you feel inexplicably tired. You are not emotionally unstable simply because your mind sometimes feels chaotic. Every one of these symptoms is merely the reaction of your soul to a toxic stream of energy aimed at you without your knowledge. It is precisely because your heart is so pure that you feel negative energy more intensely than others. It is because your spirit is open that these vibrations find easier entry. But do not blame yourself for this. Do not think you should have been stronger. In truth, your sensitivity is a gift. It allows you to hear the voice of heaven. It allows you to sense spiritual shifts long before they appear in the natural world. It makes you someone I can shelter in dangerous seasons. Yet that same sensitivity also makes you more susceptible to things that do not belong to you, and this is why I must step in now. You are living in the final hour of concealment, meaning that the things once hidden behind masks, behind sweet words, behind seemingly friendly actions can no longer blend into the shadows. This person has hidden their envy, their insecurity, their desire for control, their fear of losing to you, their fear of being overshadowed by you. For far too long, they have concealed it so skillfully that at times even they believed they were behaving normally. But the light from heaven surrounding you is growing so strong that no darkness has the power to continue hiding behind a polite exterior. You will begin to see them slipping, revealing what they once managed to cover. A glance lacking patience, a tone no longer as gentle as before, a faint sting of sarcasm, a flicker of jealousy too quick to mask. All of it will appear like cracks forming across the mirror of illusion they built to manipulate you these many months. I want you to know that heaven is preparing to prevent this energy from following you into your new season. You are about to step into a different stage of life, one marked by expansion, by elevation, by the unveiling of things you have long worn hope for. But there is a strict spiritual law: impure energy cannot enter a realm of blessing. Therefore, I must cut, separate, expose, and clarify everything that has been clinging to you, so that you may step into your future light and unburdened, carrying none of the jealousy this person has attempted to project onto you. I am not only protecting you from external schemes, I am protecting you from an invisible influence, far more dangerous, the distorted vibrations they have been sending toward you all this time. My child, have you wondered why? In recent days, you feel as though you are standing before something immense, yet still hidden from view. Why your intuition has grown even sharper, as though someone is urging you to prepare. Why, at times it feels as if there is a thin veil between you and what is about to unfold. It is because you are standing on the threshold of an important layer of truth about to be revealed. This layer of truth is not only about who they are, but also about why everything is happening at this exact moment. Why your soul has felt so burdened all this time. And most importantly, why heaven cannot allow you to enter your new season without exposing this. You are standing at the very edge of a great unveiling, a clarity so profound that it will change the way you look back on your past months and make you realize that not a single moment of pain was wasted. Every unusual exhaustion, every inexplicable wave of sadness, every time you asked yourself, "Why do I feel so heavy?" all of it has been a sign that you have been carrying energy that did not belong to you. Energy released by someone who looks at you with eyes of envy rather than a heart of love. Prepare yourself, my child. The final veil is about to be lifted, and when it rises, you will see more clearly than ever why your light makes them panic, why they felt the need to gather allies, why they had to twist the narrative, why they tried to disturb your sense of trust. But above all, you will see that from the beginning until now, heaven has always gone before you, always seen what you could not see, always blocked what did not belong to you, and always stood ready to transition you into a new season, one where the energy of envy will no longer have the strength to touch you. My beloved child, for you to truly grasp the deeper layer of what has been unfolding, I must bring you to a truth that few dare to confront. It is not because you did something wrong, it is because you carry something they cannot touch. The threat they feel is not triggered by your actions, but by your essence. The light within you is something no one can borrow, imitate, pretend to have, or manufacture. It is a light forged through years of enduring, rising, falling, rising again, seeking me, listening to me, being wounded yet refusing to grow numb, being betrayed yet refusing to become bitter, being placed in unfair situations yet still choosing integrity over manipulation. That light did not come from praise, convenience, or success. It was born out of battles only you know. You fought in silence. And that very light is what causes those who harbor darkness within themselves to feel unsettled, anxious, and threatened. I want you to understand that some people are not jealous of what you possess. They are jealous of who you have become. When they look at you, they see a strength they lost long ago. When they observe how you walk through hardship, they see a steadiness they once had, but let slip through their fingers because of poor choices. When they witness you maintaining peace in the middle of chaos, it exposes the parts of their own soul that have lived in fear, insecurity, and turmoil. Your light becomes a mirror reflecting the areas they refuse to confront. You have not harmed them in any way, yet your presence, marked by sincerity, kindness, and purity, forces them to face wounds they have tried to bury for years. You carry a light they cannot replicate. They can copy the way you speak. They can mimic your mannerisms. They can imitate the outward gestures of care you offer others. But light does not come from the surface. It comes from the depths. A person with true light does not try to be kind. They are kind. A person with true light does not try to be sincere. They live sincerely. A person with true light does not do what is right to appear righteous. They do what is right because their soul recognizes what is good. The ones who envy you do not possess this. They want it, but they cannot generate it. They attempt to recreate a version of you, but the more they try, the more they realize that what they lack is not skill, it is essence. And the greater the gap becomes between their essence and the light within you, the more threatened they feel. Your wholeness touches the wounds they hide. There are injuries within them that even they are afraid to look at. These wounds may come from rejection, abandonment, past failures, expectations they could never meet, or fractures they covered up with a mask of confidence. When you approach them with authenticity, integrity, and the calmness of someone who knows they belong to the light, their soul reacts as if you have touched a festering bruise. You never intended to hurt them, yet the health within you makes the unhealed parts of them ache. When the wounded encounter someone who has learned how to heal, they do not always come closer for help. Often, they withdraw or attack because the contrast reminds them of what they have not yet overcome. You are not hurting them. They are hurting because your light destabilizes the illusions they built to survive. You stand firm where they once fell, in the places where your soul chose truth and resilience. They stumbled and never stood back up correctly. When they see you walk through adversity without losing purity, they remember the times they chose the easier path, one that left them with regret to this day. When they see you remain kind despite betrayal, they remember how quickly they abandoned those who once loved them. When they witness you endure crises without collapsing, their own fragility is revealed. You have become a mirror reflecting their failures, and very few people possess the humility to look into such a mirror without bitterness. You heal in places where they cannot. There are things you overcome and find restoration from, not because you are inherently strong, but because you continually allow me to step into the very places where you hurt. Every time you are weak, you seek me. Every time you collapse, you call for me. Every time you lose your way, you return. That is why you are made whole. The other person is different. They try to mend themselves through control, through words that pretend to be kind, through performing strength in front of others, but they never let me touch the real wound inside them. And that is why they are not healed. A wounded soul, when standing next to a soul that has been restored, always feels unsettled, sometimes even uncomfortable. They do not understand how you can forgive, how you can remain gentle, how you can rise again, things that seem impossible for them. They do not envy your blessings, they envy the wounds that have healed in you while theirs continue to bleed. This creates a quiet bitterness, a bitterness they never acknowledge but shows up in every sideways glance, every envious look, every subtly competitive remark, every attempt to grab what they think you do not deserve. Such bitterness is not always loud. It shows in the way they react each time you succeed. It hides in their silence when you are praised. It lingers in the dullness of their response when you share your joy. It appears in the words that make you doubt yourself. It lies in the way they try to keep you tied to old versions of yourself simply because they cannot bear the fact that you are growing faster than they are. And the dangerous part is that even they do not understand they are bitter. They only feel uncomfortable when you shine. My child, it is because you shine that they feel dim. It is because you stand firm that they feel themselves shaking. It is because you heal that they feel themselves cracking. It is because you are genuine that the pretense within them begins to tremble. That is why they feel threatened. Not because you are wrong, but because you are right. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong. Not because you are lacking, but because you carry something they lost long ago or never had at all. Do not allow their silent bitterness to pull you out of the orbit of light. Do not shrink yourself just to make them more comfortable. Do not dim your radiance to fit the darkness they dwell in. You were not created to blend into the night. You were created to reveal light in places where darkness cannot stand. And because of this, the truth is about to be revealed. Not to shame them, but to free you from an unhealthy connection. Not to make you despise them, but to help you understand you are not at fault, not to frighten you, but to usher you into freedom, my beloved. For you to be truly released from this burden, I must take you one step deeper into the soul of the person who intended harm toward you. Not so you can excuse them, not so you can return to that dangerous connection, but so you can understand that what they did not begin with you. It began from a very old and very dark place within them. This person carries old wounds that have never been touched by truth, never been brought into the light, never been given permission to weep rightly, hurt fully, or heal completely. There were years when they were compared to others and always came up short, moments where they gave everything they had and still were not acknowledged, relationships where they were abandoned, belittled, or forgotten. None of those fragments disappeared as they grew older. They simply shoved them into a deep corner and covered them with layers of achievements, layers of false confidence, layers of surface-level laughter. They do not know how to bring their wounds before me. They only know how to hide them and insist I'm fine. But a wound does not disappear simply because it is concealed. It lingers. It leaks. It stains the way they see themselves and the way they see others. Then, one day, you entered their orbit, not with flashy brilliance, but with a quiet, steady light. You carried a peace they had not tasted in years. You spoke about pain with honesty they never dared to feel. You faced failure without letting it define you. Unlike them, who once allowed their past to bury them, they looked at you, and something complicated rose within them. Admiration mixed with envy, desire mixed with resistance, longing mixed with resentment. They wanted to be near you, but also wanted to push you away. They wanted to be like you, but also wanted to prove you weren't as special as you seemed. It was the strange psychology of competing with someone they secretly admired. You never claimed to be better, never flaunted anything, never tried to impress. But your existence, your purity, your steadiness, your softness that does not break made them painfully aware of what they lacked. Every time you stood firm, they remembered when they collapsed. Every time you forgave, they remembered when they hardened their hearts. Every time you moved forward, they remembered when they chose to remain in bitterness. The fear of being overshadowed began to grow inside them. They feared that if you continued to shine, people would see you instead of seeing them. They feared that if you kept maturing, you would go farther, rise higher, expand wider, and they would be left behind, alone with the shortcomings they once managed to hide by competing with others. They could not bear the idea that someone could enter their life and unconsciously expose the things they have never dared to confront. And so, what started as admiration quietly shifted into competition. They began to measure even the smallest things: who was mentioned more, who was listened to more, who was trusted more, who was favored more, who was looked at with more respect. They watched every compliment given to you as if it were a reminder that they were not enough. When others spoke well of you, a whisper rose inside them. What about me? It was never that you demanded their place. It was the old wound within them, convincing them that you were stealing the small amount of light they believed they had. That fear, when left unhealed, soon became the soil where toxicity could grow. The fear of being inferior distorted their behavior, gradually turning into harmful choices that affected both them and you. They began to speak of you in ways that lowered you just enough to lift themselves. They started describing you to others with subtle alterations, not enough to be called defamation, but enough to create a faint, uneasy impression. Their mind circled endlessly around the question, how do I make others see that this person has flaws too? They would not say it outright, but every word they released carried a small portion of their desire to dim your image in the eyes of others. They could not stand the fact that you were trusted more, so they found a way to make others cautious of you. They could not handle that you were loved, so they scattered tiny seeds of doubt into the atmosphere around you. In those moments, it was not their logic speaking, but the depth of their insecurity steering their behavior. They did not sit down and declare, "I'm going to ruin this person's life." Instead, they felt small, felt lesser, felt pushed to the margins, and from that place, they reacted to protect their wounded ego. That insecurity made them interpret everything you did through a warped lens. Your naturalness was read as pretending, your humility was labeled performing, your kindness was dismissed as attention-seeking, your silence was misread as arrogance. They were not seeing you as you are, they were seeing you as a mirror reflecting everything they feared they would never become. And from there, step by step, they began acting against you not because you were wrong, but because they could not endure the fact that you were right, good, or growing. My child, I know this is hard to hear, but you must hear it so you can stop blaming yourself. They did not wake up each day thinking, "I must hurt you." They woke up with a heaviness about themselves, and every time they encountered you, that heaviness was amplified. Their insecurity is a shattered lens, and when looking through it, even the softest light becomes blinding and unbearable. You simply carried light across their path, and because of that, they chose to throw stones at the light rather than look down at their own trembling hands. I bring you into this deeper layer, not so that you may pity them to the point of abandoning necessary boundaries. I do not reveal these things so that you excuse the way they have harmed you. I bring you here to separate you from the lie that something is wrong with you. And that's why they dislike you. The truth is, this deep inside, they do not truly hate you. They hate the version of themselves they feel forced to become whenever they stand beside you. They hate the feeling of being overshadowed. They hate how your light makes it impossible for them to hide from their own darkness. They hate that your gentleness exposes their rigidity. They hate that your sincerity reveals their calculations. They hate that your freedom reminds them of the chains they still refuse to remove. So the problem was never that you were too good or not good enough. The problem is that their soul could no longer carry the weight of what they had not healed. And you, without trying, became the clearest mirror of that truth. Here is the deepest layer of reality. They do not hate you. They hate themselves. They hate the fragile parts of their being that your light brings to the surface. They hate the feeling of shrinking beside someone who is not trying to shrink them at all. They hate that they cannot be as still as you, cannot trust like you, cannot rely like you, cannot rise like you. And so, instead of directing that hatred toward their own unhealthy choices and returning to me for healing, they direct it toward you because you are easier to see, easier to blame, and easier to attack than their own wounded ego. My child, I speak these words with mercy toward both you and them. You have the right to step out of that toxic sphere of influence without feeling guilty. You have the right to protect your heart from behaviors rooted in another person's fear and insecurity. You have the right to re-establish your boundaries without believing you are being unloving. For love does not require you to stand still while someone else's wounds continue to spill over your soul. Love does not mean allowing their fear of being overshadowed to dictate the brightness of your light. Sometimes, love is simply understanding this. I know why they acted that way. I hold no hatred in my heart, but I choose not to allow that behavior to stand near the next chapter of my life. And I, the Lord your God, stand on the side of that freedom. I do not ask you to return to contaminated air just to prove that you are a good person. I want you to step into a new space where your healing is honored, where your light is valued, and where the wounds of others no longer have the right to determine how they treat you. You have understood the deeper layer. Now let this truth set you free, my beloved child. Now I want to lead you through a corridor of memory you may not want to revisit. Yet within it lie the pieces that explain why your soul has grown so weary. This person did not attack you with direct blows, nor with harsh words that would have made it easy for you to recognize the danger and walk away. They approached you with gentleness, with words that seemed harmless, with half-hearted concern heavy enough to affect you. And within that quiet space, they began to manipulate your heart in subtle ways. They never said outright that you were not good enough, but they made comments that caused you to question yourself. You're probably just being too sensitive. They said when you shared a genuine hurt, I don't think people see you as highly as you think. They murmured as if in passing, I just worry you won't be able to keep that up for long. They added after a lukewarm compliment. None of these words were strong enough to be called insults, yet they seeped into your spirit like drops of water falling repeatedly on stone. Day after day, you began to believe that perhaps you were too weak, too sensitive, too much of a problem. You started defending them while blaming yourself. They did not need to openly belittle you. They only needed to plant a few thoughts and let you clip your own wings. There were moments of deliberate silence that you still remember, even if you did not understand why they hurt so deeply. When you shared something important, a milestone, a dream, a small joy, instead of the excitement you hoped for, you received a lingering pause, a half-hearted yeah, a sudden change of subject, or a glance that drifted away. You walked home feeling as though you had said too much, bragged too loudly, or inconvenienced them. You told yourself you needed to be smaller, more humble, more aware of your place. You did not realize that those pockets of silence were tools they used to make you feel less valuable. Every time you dared to rise a little higher, their silence acted like an invisible hand pulling you back down. They never had to say, "You're unworthy." They only needed to say nothing at all, and your sensitive heart filled the gaps with negativity. You thought it was your fault, but it was their strategy to keep you small, hesitant, dimmer, so they could remain the one who seemed grounded, stable, and superior. Do you remember the looks and tiny reactions that instantly deflated your spirit each time they landed on you? A quick eye roll when you shared something exciting, a faint smirk when someone praised you in their presence, a subtle frown when you expressed an opinion, a quietly delivered, "Don't get too excited," spoken at the very moment you were glowing. Individually, each gesture meant nothing, but repeated over time, they began to dull your light. You started speaking more softly, laughing less, sharing cautiously, dreaming quietly. You feared that shining too brightly would make them uncomfortable. You shrank yourself to maintain peace, to avoid threatening them. You turned down your own radiance so it would fit the shadowed space where they felt safe. How many times have you held back from sharing what I was doing in your life because you feared they would think you were bragging? How many times did you dim your joy because you knew your happiness would deepen the gap between you? How many times did you apologize for growing faster, my child? I saw it all. I saw the way you lowered your head after their comments, even when you forced a smile. I saw the way your eyes welled up though you looked away to avoid making things heavy. I saw every moment you whispered, "Maybe it's just me," while your soul was screaming that something was wrong. All of those behaviors were never random. Their emotional tapping was intentional, even if they themselves were not fully aware of it at times. They knew you were sensitive to affirmation, so they withdrew it at the very moment you needed it most. They knew misunderstanding could wound you easily, so they allowed vague insinuations about you to drift among others. They knew you feared disappointing people, so every time you reacted, they sighed or carried a look of disappointment, ensuring you would be the one to apologize even when you had done nothing wrong. They knew you constantly examined your own heart, so they planted phrases that pushed you into endless self-scrutiny, to the point where you could no longer distinguish true responsibility from the unfair burdens placed upon you. They touched the tenderest parts of your soul not to lift you up, but to keep you within their control. They were like a musician, and your emotions became the strings they plucked at their convenience. But my child, pause for a moment and look at this through my eyes. Heaven witnessed every detail. Not a single frown they cast your way went unseen. Not a single half-spoken word that kept you awake at night went unheard. Not a single message laced with subtle belittlement escaped the records of the spiritual realm. Not a single moment in which you held back your tears to keep the peace was missed by the angels who stood beside you longing to comfort you. In the most closed-off rooms, where only a few people gathered, my gaze was still present. Every conversation that seemed to vanish once the door was shut was kept before my throne. You thought you endured alone, but in heaven, each moment became evidence of your faithfulness and love in an environment saturated with manipulation that you could not yet name. My child, I do not reveal these things, so you will go back and judge every gesture or sentence, drowning yourself in bitterness. I speak so you will understand that you were not imagining it. I confirm that your pain was real. I confirm that the wounds in your heart did not exist because you were too weak, but because you walked through a toxic landscape with an unguarded, honest soul. I show you these subtle manipulations not so you can harbor hatred, but so you can release the guilt that never belonged to you. You were not the one who caused the problems. You were not the issue. You were not the source of the silent conflicts. You were simply a bearer of light, walking into a place where darkness had long been comfortable. Now, I want you to understand that I stand on the side of your truth and your healing. I have never called you to return to the stage as a victim in an endless play. I am opening the door for you to step out of that stage, so you no longer have to dim your radiance just to make someone else feel less threatened. So you no longer have to carry words that push you into spirals of self-doubt. So you no longer have to remain silent when your soul knows it is being controlled. You are allowed to leave places where affection is entangled with control. You are allowed to pull your heart back from hands that never cherished it. You are allowed not to answer calls that touch your deepest wounds without bringing any healing. You are allowed to set boundaries without apologizing for them. And I, the one who witnessed it all, am also the one who will wipe away every layer of dust, those manipulative behaviors left on your soul. I will remind you of your true worth until every distorted word loses its power. I will place you in relationships where no gaze makes you shrink, where silence is not used as punishment, where words do not manipulate but lift you up. I will bring people into your life who do not exploit your sensitivity, but honor it as a gift from above. And from where you stand one day, looking back, you will see every phrase that made you doubt yourself, every calculated silence, every small reaction. They were not forgotten. They were recorded, not to condemn you, but to prove that you deserve to be led out of that place and into a new territory where your soul is free and no longer controlled in silence. My beloved child, now I want you to look deeply into a subtle yet profoundly important layer of the spiritual battle you have been walking through, how their energy has latched onto your soul. There were times when you felt exhausted beyond explanation, your mind foggy, your emotions unstable. Even though nothing significant was happening externally, you tried going to bed early yet woke with heaviness. You tried praying but your mind scattered. You tried focusing but your inner world felt veiled by a thin mist that made everything unclear. You blamed yourself, thinking it was because you were weak, because your faith was not strong enough, because you lacked discipline, because you were not caring for yourself properly. But my child, I want to expose a truth. A large part of your fatigue and confusion did not originate from within you, but from a stream of negative energy that clung to you through your connection with that person. Just as walking through a smoky place leaves the smell on your clothes even if you never touched a cigarette, so it is with your soul. When you remain close to someone filled with envy, bitterness, and insecurity, their vibrations spill out into the atmosphere around you, then gradually settle onto your spirit. Each time that person mentioned your name with irritation, with complaint, or with a jealous glance. A fragment of distorted energy was released and sent toward the place where that name belongs, and that place is you. Whenever they spoke about you to someone else in a way that diminished you, exaggerated details, or twisted the truth, every word they released carried its own vibration. Those vibrations did not dissolve into the air. They moved like invisible arrows gliding across the spiritual realm. You could not hear them with your ears, yet your soul felt them. This is why there were days when your heart suddenly felt as heavy as stone even though nothing had happened. This is why there were moments when you were at peace, and then a sudden wave of sadness washed over you without warning, or an unexplained anxiety crept in. Those were the moments your name was being spoken in a conversation you were not present for. Their words did not stop at the ears of the listener. They brushed against your spirit like a faint but repeated impact, gradually forming an invisible weight that rested on your soul. You believed you just felt bad for no reason, but in truth, you were absorbing an energy you never chose. Your soul, because it is deeply connected and profoundly sensitive, has endured that unconscious connection for a long time. You did not bind yourself to them through any oath. You simply trusted, cared, opened your heart, shared your burdens, and leaned in. But that closeness, that trust, and the permission you gave them to access your inner world created a line of connection between the two souls. That line was meant to be a channel of support, sincerity, and understanding, yet because their heart carried too much fear and jealousy, the energy flowing from their side toward you was no longer life-giving but burdensome. Instead of feeling strengthened in their presence, you felt drained. Instead of feeling uplifted after conversations, your spirit sagged. Instead of seeing things more clearly, you became more confused. Every time this happened, a part of your soul had to brace itself to endure it. You tried to understand, tried to empathize, tried to focus on their good side. And because of that, you never allowed yourself to name the truth. And when the truth goes unnamed, the burden cannot be removed. It only tightens its grip around your spirit. I have seen the nights when you lay still but your heart could not rest. I have seen the moments when you sighed without knowing why sorrow pressed upon you. I have seen the mornings you woke up feeling as though you had been carrying something heavy through the night. I have seen the times you wanted to pray but your heart felt clogged, as if a veil stood between you and me. My child, I am not angry at you for this weakness. I ache with you in your weariness. I know how hard your soul has worked to preserve its own light while absorbing the shadow of someone else. I know how many times you wanted to sever the connection, yet softened because of shared history, memories, or fear of hurting someone. I know how often you stayed silent when you should have drawn a boundary, simply because you did not want anyone to feel pain. But silence does not make darkness disappear. It only gives distorted energy more room to cling. Therefore today, the Lord declares, it is time to bring that name into the light, not so you may accuse, expose, or seek revenge, but so you may see clearly who you have been connected to and what kind of energy has been flowing into your soul. When I speak those words, it means the season of unconscious endurance has reached its limit. It means I will no longer allow your name to be whispered repeatedly in the shadows without protection. It means every conversation spoken about you with harmful intent, every jealous remark, every scheme designed to block your blessing will begin surfacing in the light, so that you are no longer bound by what you cannot see. Light is not only comfort, light is separation. And when I bring their name into the light, I am also pulling your name out of every toxic connection. You will no longer carry a cord you do not understand. Instead, you will be allowed to look at it, recognize it, and release it under my guidance. My beloved, when truth draws near, everything within you that belongs to you at the deepest level begins to respond. the spiritual cells within you, those small yet living parts of your soul where memory, intuition, and spiritual discernment are stored, begin to tremble in the presence of truth. That is why your heart stirred before your eyes saw anything. That is why you sensed something was wrong long before you heard a word. That is why your spirit whispered, "Something is off," even before anything surfaced in the natural realm. The spiritual cells that I have touched again and again through prayer, through tears, through the seasons you worshipped me in weakness, have become sensitive to the movements of heaven. And now, as I come near and say, "I will reveal," they vibrate like strings of an instrument, catching the frequency of the sound they were created to echo. You may feel yourself trembling unexpectedly, shivering without reason, or finding tears welling up at odd moments. This is not emotional instability. This is your soul recognizing that truth is approaching. From this very moment, I want you to look back on every exhaustion, every confusion, every heaviness within you through a new lens. Instead of asking, "What did I do wrong?" ask, "Is there an energy clinging to me that does not belong to me?" Instead of accusing yourself with, "My faith is too weak," remind yourself, "Perhaps I have been carrying things I was never meant to carry." And in that very question, you will see me standing there, gentle yet resolute, reaching out my hand and saying, "Give it to me. Let me cut every unconscious attachment. Let me call truth by its name. Let my light separate you from everything that was never yours to bear." You were not born to become a vessel for envy, bitterness, or distorted words spoken about you. You were created to carry peace, clarity, freedom, and love. Whatever comes from a misaligned energy will fall away the moment you step into the light I am opening before you. Your spiritual cells are awakening. Your soul is trembling in recognition. And your name from today onward will never again be a name whispered in the shadows without heaven's protection. I stand here, between you and every toxic source, and I declare with absolute clarity, enough. It is time to bring that name into the light, and to pull you out of every invisible vortex that has drained your strength. My child, take a deep breath. Let your soul know that weariness is no longer your destiny. This is the beginning of a holy severing, and as the light passes through, you will find yourself lighter, brighter, freer, because everything that was never yours will finally be forced to leave. Now pray as follows, Almighty God. I come before you in this moment where my soul still carries dust and unspoken wounds. I ask that your light cover the whole of my being and shine into every hidden corner where I have been hurt by energies that were never mine. Please wash away every exhaustion, every whisper of self-doubt, every wound planted within me through the words, actions, and glances of others. Remove from me the burdens my soul has unknowingly carried for so long, and restore to me the original purity you placed within me. Lay your hand upon my heart and heal every spiritual cell, every deep fracture, every buried fragment. Teach me to recognize that my worth is not defined by how others treat me, but by the radiance of your presence that lives within me. Lord, you who see every whisper, every intention, and every spiritual movement hidden from my natural eyes, today I ask for your intervention. Cut off every toxic connection that has bound my soul. Break every invisible cord, every distorted emotional attachment, every negative word that has clung to my mind. Separate my soul from every unclean influence, from silent manipulation, from every pattern of control I have endured without realizing it. Sever everything that does not originate from you, and bring me back to the place in the light where I belong. Give me the strength to step out of emotional entanglements that have exhausted me, so I may live in complete freedom, shielded by you, carrying no trace of the darkness that once surrounded me. Lord, Grant me sharp spiritual sight to recognize what is hidden. When the mask of someone begins to fall, let me see, not with judgment, but with the wisdom that comes from you. Reveal truth at the right time, in the right way, and in the right measure, so I no longer live in ambiguity, confusion, or inner turmoil. Help me discern your voice, your warnings, your nudges, and distinguish them from the schemes born out of human fear. Teach me to separate true light from imitation, genuine love from disguised control. Expand my spiritual intuition so I can hear you, even in the quietest moments. And let my soul never again wander into shadows I fail to recognize. O Lord, my God, send your angels to surround my life, just as you promised. Let the Archangel Michael stand beside me with his sword of light and shatter every plan rising from darkness to war against my blessing. Let the Archangel Gabriel breathe the winds of peace into my spirit and cleanse me of every unfounded fear. Let the Angel of Truth illuminate every place my feet tread, so I do not fall into traps, so my eyes are not veiled, so my heart is not misled by deceptive intentions. Cover my home, my sleep, my path, and the unfolding future ahead of me. Protect my heart from harmful words and guard my mind from every silent attack, that I may dwell in the peace you have promised. Lord, I lift up to you the wounds I do not even know how to name. I offer you the times I was punished with silence, the moments I was belittled, the places where I was pushed out of conversations where I should have belonged. I bring before you the emotions that person deliberately touched, the pains I hid in order to keep peace, the countless times I made myself smaller so no one would feel uncomfortable. Lord, please heal every place in me that has been pierced, cut, diminished, or dimmed. Restore to me my confidence, my beautiful innocence, and the purity of my heart. Pull me out of every emotional burden others have placed upon me. Restore me with the oil of gladness, with your breath, with a tenderness that surpasses all understanding. Almighty God, I ask that you separate my soul from every energy of envy, bitterness, competition, and insecurity that has clung to me through someone's words or thoughts. Break every toxic vibration that has made me weary, confused, or disoriented. Remove every invisible pressure that has weighed upon my spirit throughout this season. I do not want to carry what does not belong to me, and I surrender all of those energies back to you, trusting that you will handle them in your righteousness. Cleanse the atmosphere around me with your very breath, and place a heavenly ring of fire around my heart so that no harmful vibration can ever touch me again. Lord, grant me the strength to step out of every unhealthy attachment, every emotionally entangling relationship, every connection that causes my soul to shrink whenever I stand beside them. Teach me to set boundaries firmly but without bitterness, to separate myself from controlling influences without losing compassion. Give me the courage to refuse to compromise who I am just so others can feel comfortable. Position me in the orbit of your choosing, among people who uplift me. Honor the light within me, and do not envy the grace you have placed upon my life. Close every wrong door, and open the door that leads to freedom, safety, and the eternal purpose you have designed for me. O God, I ask that you rebirth my spirit for the new season that is coming. Wash my soul in your light, renew my mind, and revive the faith that was worn down by deception and toxic energy. Place within me a new heart, one that can hear your voice more clearly, one that can discern what comes from you, what comes from darkness, and what comes from human fear. Renew the strength within me. Set my feet upon solid rock, and make me into the spiritual warrior you created me to be. Breathe the breath of life into my future, Command every delayed blessing to appear at the appointed time, and lead me into the new season with complete freedom from every old burden. I entrust my soul into your hands. For you are truth. You are light, and you are my eternal refuge. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we can build a strong and growing faith community.